When Iran's Guardian Council quickly announced a 62% win for President Ahmadinejad and Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei blessed the, quote, divine result, the streets of Tehran exploded, filling with protests unseen since the Islamic Revolution swept the country 30 years ago. Frustration boiled over and ran through the streets of this Tehran neighborhood after official election results delivered reform candidate Mir Hossein Mousavi a crushing defeat in Friday's elections. Mousavi, Mousavi, get my vote back for me, they shout.
Mr. Mousavi lost control over his people, and Mr. Ahmadinejad, I think, lost control over some of his people. Extremists on both sides came into play, and both sides seem to be losing control.
Hundreds of riot police were deployed, and for an hour here they were running battles with angry street protesters as each side charged the other. The protesters threw rocks and set garbage cans on fire, and many were beaten with batons. After a while, the growing crowd surged towards the main square. There were more security forces and police, but here they did not intervene. You said that you thought the state would overwhelmingly crush this movement. It hasn't. In fact, it's allowed them to continue in the streets, and conciliatory noises are being made to accommodate their complaints. Are you surprised?
Well, I think we have to get inside the head of Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader. Khamenei has the hindsight of himself having been a revolutionary and revolted against the Shah in the late 70s. And I think what they learned from the 1979 revolution was that when the Shah cracked down, when he clamped down, it didn't curtail the protests, and in fact, it enhanced the scale of the protests.
And then the protesters set off down Tehran's main north-south avenue. We're here to protect our vote, says this man, because we feel we've been insulted, our vote has been insulted. But soon the streets echoed with dueling rallies, pro-reformist and pro-Ahmadinejad. Sunday, the streets of Tehran belong to the supporters of President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Hundreds of thousands of them filled one of the capital city's main squares and surged into the surrounding streets for a rally that was organized to celebrate Friday's elections and the results that gave him a controversial landslide victory.
Today, we should appreciate the great triumph of the people of Iran against the united front of all the world arrogance.
At his defiant first press conference, I asked the president how he would respond to those challenging his rule. You said that you were the president of all Iranians, no matter who they voted for. I would like to ask you, what is the situation with your challenger, Mr. Mir Hossein Mousavi, and will you guarantee his safety? And why have opposition reform individuals, officials, been arrested?
The situation in the country is in a very good condition. Iran is the most stable country in the world, and there is the rule of law in this country, and all the people are equal.
When you asked Ahmadinejad in his press conference the day after his so-called victory about the state of Iran, and he said Iran is the most stable country in the world, people take this as an insult to their intelligence. And I think people are taking tremendous risks every day, going out into the streets, hundreds of thousands of people. This just gives you a sense of the depth of their sense of injustice, of the depth of their sense of rage.
Rage that President Ahmadinejad dismissively compared to sore soccer losers and errant drivers.
This is something natural. A person coming out of a stadium and may violate the traffic regulations, he will be fined. by the police, no matter who he is, an ordinary person or even a minister.
I may have missed the translation. I was asking whether you were going to guarantee the safety.
Yes, I did respond to your question. All people are respected and all people are equal before the law. And I like all the people, all members of this nation. And of course, I'm not happy with a person violating the traffic rules.
But Ahmadinejad's opponents accused him and the governing elite of a much bigger crime, stealing the election. They kept up the pressure, and the next day, Mousavi appeared in public for the first time since the election. Supporters of defeated presidential candidate Mir Hussein Mousavi took to the streets again Monday in a march that tens of thousands ended up joining. They chanted and cheered as they wound their way around Freedom Square. Although the police had said such rallies would be banned and no protest permits would be issued, the government ended up allowing this one to take place. Hundreds of riot police were deployed along the route of the march, but they did not intervene.
We are protesting against the leader who is not actually the real leader of Iran.
I want Mir Hossein Mousavi. I want freedom.
This is the same place where the Mousavi supporters held their big pre-election rally. And this time they have come and stayed for 2 hours and more, waiting to hear from him. Finally, clearing up the mystery of his whereabouts and his safety, Mousavi arrived and from the top of a vehicle addressed the throngs in his first public appearance since Friday's election.
Our people are after respect, their votes and their right.
Allowing this rally to proceed peacefully appears to be a deliberate decision by the government to change the tone of the past few days and try to show that it's dealing with this election dispute within the country's own democratic parameters. I was there and I was at the rallies and I was reporting what was going on. And I was struck by what I viewed as democracy in the streets, that they allow the protests, they allow the people on both sides, obviously, and this is a totally novel situation for Iran. Did that strike you that way as well?
Yeah, it's incredible how much Iranian political culture has matured and how mature Iranian political culture is compared to elsewhere in the Middle East. People no longer have utopianist ideas. They're not talking about a pure Islamic society. They have very practical demands, a greater political voice, greater social freedoms, more economic opportunities.
But democracy here has its limits. As the rally ended, gunfire was heard. This disturbing image of at least one reported death. What happens after this? This genie cannot be put back in the bottle. So what does this mean for Iranian domestic politics?
Well, it's difficult to see how we could go back to the status quo ante. Sacred red lines have been crossed. Previously, sacred red lines have been crossed. People are beginning to openly challenge the legitimacy of Ayatollah Khamenei as supreme leader. People are, in fact, openly challenging the institution of supreme leadership itself.
Is the position of the supreme leader weakened?
I think it's the opposite. I think that many people are now turning to him more than ever before to resolve this issue and to bring the different candidates together and to calm down the situation and the emotions that have been created as a result of this very hotly contested electoral campaign.
Next, as the week ended with Iran locked in an internal power struggle, everyone waited for the nation's supreme leader to speak out. Friday prayers when we come back.